Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Composr CMS development stream. I am Orqata, and I will be entertaining you for the next 2 hours on my channel as we work more on Composr CMS. So, Composr CMS, for those who may not know, is a free and open source web development software. So you could use Composr CMS to develop your own website and then host it on your own web server. We like to think of Composr CMS as one of the several options that people have to combat the corporate nature of big tech taking over everything. So if you don't like software as a service, so these online website builders that have give you very limited control over your website and your data. If you are the type of person who doesn't like these artificial intelligence website builders, and you want to have control of everything and not have to pay an arm and a leg for it, Composr CMS may be right for you. I would, if that sounds like something you may be interested in, then I would highly recommend that you check out Composr CMS. The website is composr.app, so that is COMPOSR.app. That is the version 11 website, where you can download and test the version 11, which is currently in beta. If you want a stable version, then if you go to compo.sr, that is the version 10 website. And now I do want to mention that because of restrictions in the UK with the Online Safety Act, this website is in a read-only state. So the forums doesn't work anymore, all of that stuff. The tracker doesn't work anymore. If you want to communicate about the version 10 or version 11, both versions, then you will need to use composr.app, which is a US-based website and is not governed by the UK Online Safety Act. Even though the UK wants to govern the entire world with the Online Safety Act, I'm calling you out, the UK. Your Online Safety Act, you don't own the world with that. Alright, so what are we doing today? So it's been a little bit of time since we've worked on Composr CMS. A few weeks ago, when I last did a stream on Composr CMS, we were working on the statistics system. Actually, we've been working on the statistics system for quite some time, and that's mainly because everything that I've tried ends up having some sort of major pitfall, and I would have to try something else completely different. So the original issue with the statistics system is that Composr CMS has its own statistics add-on, which is bundled by default. And this gathers analytics of your website. And then it can produce graphs for you in your admin zone. But the way that the statistics system initially stored data in the database was very inefficient. It would store data in groups according to time periods, and what ended up happening is each row would be several megabytes in size. So when that gets loaded into PHP, sometimes you could have an out-of-memory error. And I was experiencing that on the main composr.app website, because there was a lot of traffic, a lot of bot traffic in particular, to that website, and still is a lot of bot traffic to that website, making that a very inefficient method of storing data. So what I instead did was I tried to flatten everything out But then we ran into an issue of having literally hundreds of millions of rows in the database. And that got really inefficient because the statistics module would add-on would be taking up 30 gigabytes of database size just from that, and it would also be very slow. So we're further refactoring the statistics model, or add-on. I don't know why I keep calling it the module, but we're refactoring the add-on further. Instead of storing data by time period, we're just storing data with a timestamp. And we're letting the renderer, or the graphs, deal with time periods. Now this will be a heavier burden on the web browser when you go to load the analytics, because the web browser will have to do the calculations of time periods. They're not done automatically for you anymore based off of the storage in the database. But I don't think it'll be that difficult for a web browser to manage. And I think it will reduce the size of the database by about maybe 1/6 to 1/8, I'm predicting. So maybe we'll get that 26 gigabytes down to roughly 4 or 5 gigabytes. That's still quite a bit, but I really I can't think of any other solution that would be elegant, that would work across multiple SQL providers and servers. Because that's the key issue with Composr, is that, I've explored other solutions to this problem, namely doing complex SQL queries so that we could split data into multiple tables to avoid redundancy. But not only would we significantly increase the amount or significantly decrease the performance of these SQL queries by doing that, we would also break compatibility with other database drivers. Because what would work for MySQL would probably not work for Oracle or MS SQL as examples. So what we need to develop needs to be performant, it needs to be simple, and it needs to work across multiple database providers. And unfortunately, that comes at a bit of a cost to achieve. We're going to we have to avoid complex SQL queries because we want to be able to utilize batch inserts where possible, so that we're not running a query on every single insert that we want to do. And we also, of course, the simplified queries mean that they're more likely to work across multiple database providers. But again, since we're not splitting data across multiple tables, since we're keeping it simple, that means there will be a little bit of repetition. Whoa! Hello there, Lavinity. You jump scared me. I forgot I had a screensaver on. So she will pop up full screen if I don't do anything after a while. Since we're not splitting the data across multiple tables, there will be some repetition in some of the data that gets saved to the database, which means that there will be an increase in the amount of data that is being stored in the database. That's the caveat to this whole madness. So today I am a little bit sleepy, honestly, so I'm probably not going to be talking much throughout this process. I am going to get us started with where we are right now, kind of explaining you some of the refactoring process and progress that we have made. But after I explain it to you, I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to leave the background ambience going for you to enjoy the nice spooky, soft spooky ambience in the background. If anybody leaves a comment in the chat, I would definitely respond to it. Okay, so we need to go all of the stuff with regards to the statistics is in the hooks section of Composr CMS. So we have our hooks for the admin stats module, and each hook pertains to a particular add-on, which wants to tie into the statistics add-on. So for instance, like the banners add-on will want to tie into the statistics add-on by generating statistics about the banner clicks and things like that. Or the forum add-on will want to tie in to generate statistics about the number of posts or topics that have been made on the website, and so on and so forth. So what we're doing, I'm going to compare old file with new file. Actually, that one may not be a good example. Here's a better example. So here's how we previously stored statistics in Composr CMS. What we would do is we would query the database for the time period that we're generating statistics, and then we would process that data into different time intervals, different pivots as we call them. So like the days of the week, weeks of the month, months of the year, things like that, hours of the day, and then time series, so like from this time to this time, monthly series, yearly series, like the year 2006, the year 2005, so on and so forth. And then we would put that data into a multi-dimensional array on the property data buckets for the class of the stats provider. So we would put it here. There would be a bucket name, which is basically the name. It's like a unique identifier for the particular statistic that we're tracking, followed by our pivot information, and then sometimes there would be extra information in the form of additional keys appended on the end of this array. And then finally, the value of this entire thing would be an integer, which would basically be a count of the number of times that this particular event happened at that particular pivot. This one doesn't have any additional keys. Let me find one that does. Here's one. So for instance, we also have a product name. So we would further divide the data according to product name in e-commerce. So that way, when you go into the statistics page, you can filter by product name. That's essentially the purpose of having additional keys at the end of the array. But this whole thing is very efficient. And it was, like I said, it was storing. What we would do is we would serialize the arrays and put them into long text columns in the database, long text rows, and those things could get really big if you have a lot of traffic. Not only that, but the arrays themselves can get pretty big, and those can trigger PHP out the memory errors. Because, multi-dimensional arrays in PHP are not that performant, believe it or not. They could take up quite a bit of memory if you are not careful. So this whole entire thing was not efficient. And furthermore, in order to make this whole thing happen, we would have to do several nested for each loops. We would have to do at least 2 nested for each loops within the processing of the data itself. And then for the generation of the graph, we would have to do a for each loop for each pivot. We would have to do additional for each loops sometimes for the additional data or the additional filters that we append onto the graph. In this case, we don't. We just have a... Oh, wait, yeah, we do, right here. So yeah, this one has 4 nested for each loops. Very inefficient. So we're in the process of refactoring all of these hooks. I got a few of them already refactored. So for instance, here, this is action log. And if we go down here, as you first notice, we don't have pivot anymore. Actually, we could get rid of this line too. We don't have pivot anymore because we're not saving the data multiple times in the database for each time series and pivot. We're just saving the data in the database with the exact timestamp that particular event occurred. And then what we're going to do later is we're going to refactor the code for generating the graphs. And the graphs are the ones that are going to figure out at what intervals in each pivot a particular timestamp belongs. I think that'll be much more efficient. It'll also, if you notice, based off of this refactoring, we only have one for each loop now. We do have a do loop, though. That is necessary because this is to prevent PHP out the memory errors in the event that we have a whole bunch of data coming in from SQL. So the way this works is we're only querying 1,000 rows at a time. That way we can avoid out the memory issues with PHP. So we process 1,000 rows at a time. We have a new method called saveStat on the class. And what this does, so instead of storing it in a multi-dimensional array, we're taking the event and calling the saveStat method. And what this does is it does have a temporary array, as you can see here, but it's more effective. It's not as... It is technically multi-dimensional still, but not to the extent that it used to be. In other words, it's only like 2 or 3 levels deep, instead of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. And furthermore, it doesn't store as much data as it used to. The array is only meant to hold data until it's time to run our batch processing, our batch insert on the database. So essentially what we're doing is when we call saveStat, we put the event in memory into an array to record that, this event happened. Actually, it happens right here. Then we check our current PHP memory use as well as the current size of the array. If our remaining memory reaches 8 megabytes or less, or if we have 150 records in the array, then we trigger a batch insert into the database. And then once we trigger the batch insert, the array gets nulled, and so all of the data gets removed from memory, and we start basically with a clean slate. I also forcefully trigger a garbage collection as well. Might not particularly be necessary, but I am doing it just in case because the statistics system does handle a lot of data when it is processing. There's further safety guards as well that you are not currently seeing. So the statistics system is triggered, of course, by a cron job. The recommendation in the documentation is to run the cron job every minute, even though the statistics system doesn't actually run every minute. Instead, what it does is that normally it will run every 15 minutes, and on the 15th minute it will trigger and it will start processing stats. But after a certain point, after like 10 or 20 seconds of execution or 4,000 database queries, then it stops. And that's to prevent server timeouts, memory issues, things like that. If it did not finish the job, then it switches to running every minute until it finishes the job. And then once it finishes the job, it goes back to every 15 minutes. So that's the way the cron works. So you would schedule it every minute in your server, but when the software checks to see how long it's been since the previous run, it won't do anything if it's been too soon. And there's nothing, and if there's nothing to do. So that's where we are. And we're going to go ahead and pick off from there. So like I said, there's not going to be much talking from this point forward in the stream, but I am more than happy to answer any questions or comments that you leave in chat during this time about what we're doing or about the software or just anything in general. I'm happy to talk. So the first thing I need to do is find out where I left off. I had already committed my previous changes, so I'm not. I guess I could do a commit, a git log. I don't know if that's. Oh wait. I remember now. There is a graph feature in the VS Code that I can use, and if I click on refactor the stats again, which is the previous commit. Actually, no, it would be more statistics refactoring. We can look at the files that have been modified. We actually got through quite a few. Okay, we're all the way down to sitemap. I was a lot further than I thought I was. Okay, which means that we left off on subscriptions, I think. Yeah, because sitemap already has a safe stat call right here, which tells me that I went through this one. So we left off on subscriptions, and then we only have these few left to do, and then we're not done yet after that, because sources is for the bundled add-ons for Composr CMS. Then we have to go under sources custom, and there's only 3, but we have to do those hooks as well. Those are for the non-bundled add-ons, the ones that do not ship by default with the Composr CMS software, but you can later download if you want them. Alright, so I'll go ahead and talk you through the refactoring process for the subscriptions file, and then from that point on, I probably won't say much after that. So to refactor this, first off, we don't need we don't need to know the server time zone anymore, so we could get rid of that. We don't need to know date pivots anymore, because we're not calculating pivots either. But we do need the query, of course. We need the do loop. And then we don't need to know, we don't need to convert the time anymore to the configured timestamp of the website. We want to leave it in UTC time, because we're going to be putting it back in the database in a separate table, and so we want to keep it in universal time. Next, we get rid of the pivot for each loop, because we're not doing pivots, as I mentioned. So we don't need that for each loop anymore. We don't need these 2 variables anymore, because we're not calculating pivots. And honestly, we don't need any of this anymore. All we have to do is substitute with the saveStat method. So the saveStat method first takes in the bucket name, which in this case is the first key, subscriptions. That's the name of the event that we are logging. Finally, the timestamp at which it occurred, that's stored in the timestamp variable, and then an array of additional keys if we are filtering by any additional information. In this case, we are not. We don't have any additional criteria for this particular statistic. And that is what we are left with. And then eventually, like I said, once we get through all of these hooks, we will work on the graphs. So that's pretty much all there is to it. So now we do support tickets. So again, we don't need time zone. We don't need pivots. We do need the query. We still need the forum ID. We don't convert time anymore. Oop. We're not doing a loop for pivots. So we could get rid of all of the pivot information. And once again, we write in our replacement. So this one is keeping track of how many support tickets have been opened in a given period of time. This one does not have any additional filters either. I could tell because there's nothing, no other additional keys after the pivot ones. And that is it for support tickets. Now we go under transactions. This one's for the e-commerce system. I think I showed you this as an example early at the beginning of the stream today. So again, we remove time zone. Hang on. I've been trying to increase the font size, but I keep forgetting that you have to do it in the settings of VS Code. You can't use the mouse wheel for that. There we go. Now that should be a little bit more readable for you. Okay, we're not converting time zone. We get rid of pivot. Now this one has multiple types of statistics, so we have to be a little more careful with this one, but it's not too complicated. We can figure this one out. So here's one right here, transaction quantity. So the number of times a certain product has been not purchased necessarily, but the number of times that somebody had started a transaction on a particular product. So a transaction could mean anything. It doesn't necessarily mean a successful purchase. It just means that somebody had started the process of purchasing something. We need the timestamp of when it was purchased. And this one, I believe, does have additional filters. It has the product name. So we need to specify that in our key array, which will get flattened in the database. So the way we're storing data now is instead storing the filters now is instead of creating a serialized dump into the database, we are flattening it basically. And the way that works is we take the keys and we have a double pipe delimiter. So we're just writing them out into a standard text column with a double pipe delimiter. And the reason why we do this is because what's nice about the way that we have this structured is that keys is hierarchical. You have your superset as the first key, a subset of the superset as your second key, and then the third key is a subset of the second key, which is a subset of the first key, and so on and so forth. It's hierarchical. And that allows you to do like searches in SQL. So I could easily find something by doing a like query within the database. So let's say I want to get, let's for instance say we have a product category followed by product name as our keys. So we could filter by product category, and we could also filter by product name. Let's say I want all of the product names that belong to a specific product category. I could easily do a like query that says office. Let's use that as an example as our category. We put in our delimiter and we use a wildcard. And then that particular where clause in the SQL will return all of the data for the product category office. So it comes in handy to store it like that. Now, of course, like I said, the caveat is, since we're not serializing data anymore, it will increase the number of rows that are getting saved into the database, and consequently also increase the size of the table itself. But I think the pros outweigh the cons in this situation, because the pro is you don't get PHP out of memory errors anymore when we're trying to load this data. Instead of having to load everything in at once to find a particular data point, we can query for that one particular data point. Or if we need multiple data points, we could query for multiple data points and process them in batches rather than having to load the entire thing in at once. Okay, and then the next one is transaction income, and this one is to track the, of course, I can't talk today. Like I said, I'm running on very little sleep today. To track the amount of money that you have received from purchases in your e-commerce store for a given period of time. And I think we're done with transactions for now, so we go to users online and repeat the process. I don't know if we have to... Okay, this is a good time for me to explain. We have two different ways of storing stats, and users online has a different method of storing stats as compared to the other ones that I have talked about today. As I mentioned previously, these other statistics are time-based. They happened at a specific time, and we want to track the time at which certain events occurred. That way we can gather up data such as how much income we've earned in February 2026, or how many purchases were made at 5 p.m. on a given day. You know, things like that. But flat data operates differently. Flat data is not based on time. It is basically a cumulative total of something. So in this case, we're tracking the total number of users that are online. This one actually has a timestamp though. I recently changed this one, and I have to try and recall why I changed it like this. Okay, so what I do know is that the users online track table in my SQL, that's a table where Composr, there's a separate cron job that runs and calculates the number of users that have been online on your website in a given day. And I believe it also tracks the peak number. Yeah, it tracks the peak number of users that you've had in a given day. But is this a temporary table? I don't even know if this is a temporary table or not. Anyway, it needs to be transposed. It needs to be converted into the statistics add-on anyway in order for it to render into the graph. Essentially, we're making it permanent by doing it like that. But okay, so in this case, timestamp wouldn't necessarily be a particular time that a user had visited the site, but rather the timestamp indicating at which day the count of the peak online users occurred. And to-epoch interval index is a special temporal function that I wrote for Composr CMS, where it takes a timestamp, an epoch timestamp. It takes an interval, which is minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years, and then an epoch offset, and then converts it into an interval. So in this case, like for instance, if you specify a timestamp and you specify days as your interval, and let's say 30 was your return, then that means the timestamp that you provided is 30 days past epoch. And epoch is January 1st, 1970 by default. Of course, you can change that by specifying an epoch offset. So if you did change it, if it's non-zero, then the 30 would be the number 30 days past the timestamp that you provided as epoch. So I wrote these functions because I was having problems with PHP's string to time not being very reliable. Sometimes, like if you tell it to give me the nearest full week or something like that, it would do very unpredictable things. Sometimes it would give you the current week when I wanted the next week, or it'll go 2 weeks in advance, or it did a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So I wanted something that was concrete, it was predictable, and I knew what it was going to do. So I wrote this out, and it's just basically and it considers the Gregorian calendar for months and years as well. So it considers leap year. And also there's like there's a catch. I don't think it's in this one. I think it's from epoch interval index that has the catch, but there's a particular catch in here where like if we end up on February 29th of a year that doesn't have a leap year, then we automatically default to March 1st. Oh, here it is right here. It's in years. My bad, not the months. So yeah, it's a very handy function for us, and I use it a lot in the statistics system, and it has fixed a lot of bugs that we've had prior in the statistics system when we were using string to time. We've also used string to time in the points leaderboard add-on, and that was creating issues where sometimes the points leaderboard would just never generate. Because PHP string to time would keep going to the next week, despite our calculations and what we're telling it to do. And it was just a mess. It was a big mess. Anyway, let's get back on topic, shall we? For this particular one, like I said, this is flat data. So it's not particular. So what we mean by flat is you're not going to search this data within particular time pivots. You're not going to search peak online users by hour of day or day of week, you know, things like that. Actually, I believe Views has something like that, which this one's going to be a very cumbersome one to do. That's the next one that we got to do. But rather, it's just by day. So we're going to go ahead and put in our flat data. So it's pretty much similar to how we've done it before. There is a little bit of a difference. First off, we specify the name of our bucket, users online. For timestamp, we do actually have a timestamp. Most flat data does not. Let's see. I don't think. Do we have a. So we have date interval. Hang on one second. Timestamp date interval. I gotta think about this. This actually might not work the way that I'm thinking that it will work. Yeah. Okay. So timestamp. I forgot to get rid of the conversion to site time. Timestamp might not exactly be at midnight. Because it depends on when the cron job is triggered to calculate the number of users that have been online. So that's why we run 2 epoch interval index. That's to ensure that we're not basing it off of hours, minutes, and seconds. We're only basing it off of days. But we can't pass days into timestamp. So do we pass it in as a filter? Do we pass it in as a key? How do we currently generate the graph for this one? We have a makeshift day pivot of day range. Okay. And it's based off of interval, for each data as interval to the assigned to the value. I think we do. Okay, so we specify null for timestamp since this is flat data, and we pass in date interval as our key. So we're specifying the peak online users by day number since epoch. And I think if I recall correctly, what's going to happen is that since this is flat data, there is duplication prevention in here because we don't want duplicate entries for flat data. So yeah, if the date and time specified, which in our case is null, then what we do is we delete the previous record from the database. That way we don't have duplicates. And also, this is also to replace the previous value. Because there could also be the case where maybe the number of peak online users gets calculated multiple times in a particular day. So we don't want 2 entries for the same day to be in the database. We just want the most up-to-date entry to be in the database. So yeah, that makes sense. So we need null for timestamp since this is flat data. That triggers the duplication prevention in the save stat method. And then we put date interval in as the key. And then when we go to refactor the graph, we will look at the keys and break them down into our makeshift pivot for the graph. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now at the this one's going to be a big one. The views hook has a lot of different data that we are processing. So this one's going to take a little bit of time, and it's possible that we're going to run into a lot of special conditions, so to speak. So bear with me, I'll explain everything. And as you can see, I'm doing a PHP time limit extension on this particular hook for this reason, because it takes because it does a lot of calculation. Alright, let's get started. We'll get rid of the pivot information. We can ignore this warning. There is actually a method called getGuestID on forum driver but VS Code's IntelliSense is not able to pick up on that because forum driver, the class that is assigned to this particular global, depends on a value in the site configuration. Essentially, it assigns a class based off of which forum that you have installed on the site, so there's no possible way for the IDE, or the code editor rather, to know what the methods are available. Alright, so we start with our main processing loop here. We could get rid of conversion of time into website time. We want to leave it at UTC. We're doing anonymization of IPs and users by hashing them and salting the hash. We're determining the user agent or the browser agent. We're determining if we think that the visitor is a human or a bot. And this is a particular function for that. We have some well-known bot user agents that we keep up to date in the software. And it does a few other heuristics checking as well. If it doesn't match a user agent, there's a couple of other checks that I think it does as well. We check how the particular hit was referred. And then we do our loop here. Again, we're not doing date pivots anymore when we store into the database, so we could get rid of that for each loop. And then this indentation is going to drive me crazy, so let's backtrack the indentation. Okay, first we have total views as our first data point. And then our additional, we have quite a few additional filters here. We have country, that's our superset. Israel human is a subset of that, followed by the page link at which they hit as the subset, the final subset. I seem to have, oh, it's save stat, not save stats. Just wondering why it was not liking that. Now, I want to think about this for a moment, because we want to think about database efficiency. We want to think about how we're doing supersets and subsets when we're storing this data into the database. I think it's good that we have page link as the final key, because it's the most specific. But country versus Israel human, do we want to flip-flop these? Because I feel Israel human is less specific than country. So I think Israel human should be the superset. Because there's only two possible values for Israel human, true and false. For country, there's like 200 possible values. And page link, there's an infinite number of values, because it depends on how you name your pages on your website. And there's an infinite number of ways that you can name your pages. So we need to keep this in mind. We need to follow this format as we progress throughout this file. And we need to remember that new order when we go down to refactor the graphs as well. Because the graphs most certainly are not ordered in that way. Okay, next. Oh, actually, I should not have deleted that, because we need another save stat method for total unique views. This one has country, Israel human, followed by unique identifier. We're tracking the number of total unique views. I think this order is fine. So again, we'll use Israel human first, followed by country, followed by unique identifier. Because again, I mean, unique identifier is not necessarily infinite, but it's like billions and billions and billions of possibilities. Because it's I think it's a 32 character random string or something like that. Actually, no, it's much more than that. Because we're hashing it, it's like 43 characters of base 64. Okay. Let us continue. Total referrals. So next one here. Timestamp, Israel human and country. We don't have anything else after that. So again, we're going to keep Israel human as our first key in the data. Okay, then we have our popular pages. Wait a minute. This looks identical to total views. I need to do a quick search throughout the file here. Okay, it is not the same. Because with the views, you could filter by page link, and with popular pages, page link, we're doing something special with page link. It's not the filter. Okay. I just wanted to make sure to avoid redundancy in the data that we're saving into the database. That almost looked like we were having duplicates, and we want to avoid those. Alright, so that is popular pages. Next we're saving user agent info, it looks like. We start with operating system. This one has OS as its subset, final subset rather. I'm thinking about this one as well, the order. I mean, technically, if we're thinking about the mainstream operating systems, there's more countries than there are operating systems. However, theoretically, there could be more operating systems than there are countries. I mean, you could have a million Joe Schmoes in the basement at their mother's house, coding in their own personal operating systems to use that are not the mainstream, and naming it a whole bunch of different names. So just because there's only, like, you know, there's Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, Android, and maybe a few of the other mobile operating systems, you know, there's still plenty more out there, technically. And also, I believe OS stores the version number of the operating system, whereas OS stripped does not. I would like to combine the two, honestly, and just have operating systems, but have an additional parameter like OS stripped followed by OS, so that you could filter by either one, and that would reduce the amount of data that we're storing in the database. Let me think about that for a second. If we really think about it, the views hook is going to have a lot of data, because we're tracking, you're basically tracking everybody who hits your website, right? So we want to reduce the amount of data that we store in the statistics add-on as much as possible. So we might want to combine operating systems and operating system stripped together into one bucket or one graph, and then have OS stripped as a secondary parameter. But then we also need to keep in mind that this could exponentially increase the number of rows that we save in the database. Because if we put the OS stripped into the key, we're gonna have... So like, you gotta consider like powers, for instance. It's going to exponentially increase the rows. So you got to think, are we going to have more data by adding it as an additional filter on this bucket and then removing the second bucket? Or are we going to have more data in the database by keeping both buckets? I'm going to give this a little bit of thought while we take our 5-minute break, since we are at the top of the hour. So everybody stick around, and we will return to saving Walden development in about 5 minutes. Stick around.
The medical condition osteoporosis affects which part of the body? Type 1 in the chat to vote, bones. Type 2 in the chat to vote, heart. Type 3 in the chat to vote, brain. Type 4 in the chat to vote, skin. Ten seconds left to submit your answer. Time is up. The correct answer was bones.
In which year did Caravan Palace release their first album? Type 1 in the chat to vote, 2004. Type 2 in the chat to vote, 2015. Type 3 in the chat to vote, 2008. Type 4 in the chat to vote, 2000. Ten seconds left to submit your answer. Time is up. The correct answer was 2008.
Alright everybody, welcome back to our development stream of Composr CMS. I gave the situation some thought with regards to OS versus OS stripped. Yeah, did you know that your operating system is working night shifts? They stripped. Anyway, we're going to... Yeah, I think we're going to combine the two graphs together. That'll save on some data in the database, I think. Now, how we're going to combine it, though, we'll have to think about that a little bit. Do we want to combine it in such a way that OS stripped is saved into the database along with the data? What's going to happen is if we do it that way, it's going to increase the size of operating systems by about 5 or 6 fold, which isn't too bad, because there's like 5 or 6 different mainstream operating systems. Or do we leave the stripped version out of the database and programmatically use it in filtering? That's going to be... I feel that's going to be more challenging considering how the statistics system is structured. So I don't think I'm going to use that approach. I mean, OS stripped, like I said, there's only about 5 different possibilities of what it could be. So it's not going to increase the size of the database that much, I don't think. Whoops. Wow, I completely botched it. Now I have to type it. Okay. So I think we're going to do that. Now we also need to think about the if conditions here. I gotta make sure that these are sound. So, in theory, if OS is blank, then OS stripped would also be blank. OS stripped, if OS stripped is blank, OS would also be blank as well. Probably. Because if OS isn't stripped, then this would run. Although you could end up having a situation where this gets replaced and then trimmed out and then you have a blank, but then it was blank to begin with in order for that to happen. So I think this is fine. We'll get rid of OS stripped from the code. And now we move on to web browsers. Oh, we got to remove operating system stripped from the list of graphs up here. And yeah, see, it has pretty much the same filters and structures as each other. So we don't really need both of them. So we need day range, country, exclude bots. We're going to add an additional and we're going to call it exclude version. This is going to be a tick box. If you have this checked, then we use OS strict. If it's not ticked, then we use OS, the full version of the operating system. We need to create a language string for it. So we're going to search for the use of exclude likely bots, and we're going to put under it exclude version. Let's make sure that the exclude version isn't already a language string. It is not. Now we have a tick box for exclude version. I'm going to put in our graph function. Where's our graph function? It's right here. It's a big function. I'm going to make a note to myself that we removed operating system strict, added exclude version on filter on operating system. Alright, that should hopefully remind me when I get to graph generation. We have OS strict first, followed by OS. Alright, now we can move on to web browser. This one also has a strict version. My gosh, what are we, a strip club over here? Everybody's getting stripped. Alright, so yeah, pretty much same thing here with web browser strict. We have like 5 main web browsers. And I think we're going to combine them into one statistic. We have Israel, him, and country. This one will be web browser strict, because web browser strict is a superset of the web browser with the version number. And again, we need to do the same thing up here. We get rid of web browser strict. We add a filter for exclude the version under web browsers. And I need to make a note that I did that to web browsers as well. Alright, we continue. User agent type. Alright, I am not entirely sure what user agent type is. Oh, bot mobile desktop. Okay, so it's like, I see. I wonder if we should combine that into web browser as well. Let me think about that. Would there be any reason why? Because that user agent type, there's only 4 different possible values for that. No, we're not going. Okay, so hear me. Here's my thought process. We're not going to combine user agent type with web browsers like we did with the strict version of, operating system strict. Particularly because someone may want to know a breakdown of the percentage of traffic that they've received to their website who are mobile users versus desktop users, so on and so forth. So that needs to be an entirely separate graph in order to view the breakdown. So it's not a filter, it's an actual graph. It's an actual thing that somebody would want to see broken down on a pie chart. Unlike viewing strict version, like with the strict version, you could easily make that the filter, and now with the exclude version tick box, if you tick it, then you will get a breakdown based off of the strict version of OS and web browser. But it won't work for user agent. In particular because we already have web browser stripped, so that's going to complicate things. So yeah, we're going to leave it like this. Carrying on. We're going to referrers now. We got the refer URL. Refer domain. We're just, do we do a host name call or something on that? Oh, we do PHP URL host. Okay. Again, is there any particular reason that we would want... Oh, I accidentally deleted, No, I didn't. I just forgot to rename this. Is there any particular reason that we want to have domain separated from URL? Because if you really think about it, domain is a superset of URL. Yeah, I'm not... we're gonna combine refer domain and refer URL as well. Actually... I'm having second thoughts about this. Let me think more. We combined operating systems with the operating system version. Oh, we don't have any filters specifically for the operating, so we can't search by operating system anyway. Okay. Yeah, the same thing for refer domains and refer URLs. You can't search for domains or URLs specifically because that's part of the graph. So yeah, we're going to combine the two. Refer domain is going to be a superset of referred URL. We go up here into the graphs, where we define the graphs. We're going to find referrers. We're going to remove referrer domain. We're going to add a tick box for excluding, we'll call it domain only. Make sure we don't have any duplicates. We're not going to say domain only in the actual text of the label. We want to be more concise so that the users understand what is going on here. So we want to say group by domain. That way users will know, hey, we're going to group the stats kit together by domain. So like for instance, example.com /page2 example.com/page2/page22. Those would all be grouped together into example.com. We should probably be, I should be more concise with the code name as well. It really shouldn't deviate from the actual language tree. There we go. Took a few tries to type it correctly. Alright, where were we? This should be refer URLs, plural. Okay, let's move on. Refer type. Again, this is similar to user agent type. I can see somebody wanting to see a separate breakdown of refer type. So we're not going to combine that with URL. We're going to keep that a separate graph. Alright, so we move on to speed. And we're not talking about the movie. So for this one, we're finding the bracket at which, so like the brackets are the different categories in which a particular page took to load in terms of time. And we save the category, or the bracket, into the statistics. We call it load time spread. We're spreading and we're stripping. Give me 1 second here. That doesn't look important, so I'm going to ignore that notification. Okay, this one is a little tricky because we have a special array assigned here because we have 2 different data points. So we have to be a little bit careful about this one. So it's counting average speed, so I think what we're doing is we calculate the total sum of page speeds out of every hit, followed by the number of hits to that particular page, and then we divide it to come up with the actual average speed of the page. So the way this works is we use 0 as the key for the... We need to do 2 separate save stats. The first one is with key 0. And we have a special parameter that you haven't seen yet on today's stream called the value within save stat. Normally it saves 1, which means that the event happened 1 time. But in this case, we're actually using value not as the number of times something happened, but as the number of milliseconds, I guess. So we need to save the actual page speed in as the value, and then the number of hits, that's going to just be left at 1, so we don't need to provide values since that defaults to 1. And that's going to be assigned to key number 1. And then in the graph, like I said, it's going to take key number 0, it divided by key number 1, so total page speed divided by total hits, and that gives you average page speed per hit. Okay, and then there's a page, so that's overall page speed, I think. Oop. And then the next one is page specific, because then we add in the page link flag into our data. Now this one has a page link as part of the set of data, so we need to specify that in our keys as the first item in the array. Alright, now we move on to languages and countries. So this is basically telling you what languages people's web browsers have been requesting, so you can kind of get a gauge of whether you might want to consider adding support for a particular language in your website. Alright. Next we move on to sessions, and this one's going to be a doozy. Possibly. Alright, again we need to get rid of our date pivot. We don't need pivots anymore. We're not saving in pivots. We're just saving raw data with its timestamp. Just gonna copy that. Okay, so we don't need that. Now we're checking bounces. So first we need to save session bounce rates. Israel human country page link 0. That would indicate that that particular, I guess, session or hit was a bounce. And then in key number 1, we're keeping track of overall hits so that we can then divide accordingly and get the percentage of bounce rate. Right. Average session duration. I think this one's doing something similar. So again, we don't need that in our refactoring. We're going to save the session duration as the value in key 0. Yeah, we're not using page link this time. because this is going to get this is going to derive a calculation of the average session time per session. Alright, total views, we're doing something similar as well. So we're calculating the average number of page views for a particular session. I feel like for a lot of these, they seem redundant. Okay, so hear me out. What is happening here is that for each hit, or for each session, we're saving like the total number of views or session duration, followed by an additional row, just counting the number of sessions that have occurred. But we don't need this anymore in the way that we're structuring our data, because we could always calculate the number of sessions or whatever we have just by counting the number of rows that we have returned from this. At least in theory. We want to check to make sure we don't have any duplication checking on non-flat data. I don't think we do. So we could have duplicate rows inserted. So yeah, I'm going to make a note late. I'm not going to do it today, but later on I'm going to go back and remove some of these where we're saving additional keys just to keep a running tally of the number of entries, because we don't need that. We know how many entries there are just by the number of times we saved a data point. Alright, session entry pages. I think this calculates a breakdown of how many sessions have started off on a particular page, so you can see what people are using as the first page that they view on your website. And then exit pages is the opposite, the last page that a session or a person has viewed before leaving the website. And then this is calculating a bracket, so categorizing session durations. And then we have session total views, the total number of pages that a particular session has viewed. And that does it for the refactoring of the views hook. That was a big one. Let's see how many. I think I have one more to do in the sources folder, and then after this one, I think we'll call it a day for today's stream. So we remove time zone, we don't need that. We remove pivots, we don't need that. We don't convert to server to the website time zone, we leave in UTC. We don't need date pivots anymore. We're not saving as date pivots. So this counts the number of warnings and punishments that have been issued based off of country and category or explanation. Should I reverse this? Let me think about this for a moment. Regarding filtering, would someone be more likely to want to filter by explanation or group by explanation, or would somebody be more inclined to group by country? It's kind of a toss-up because I could see site administrators wanting to do both. So I think I'm just going to leave it in its current order. Alright, now we have a flat data to do. This one is just recording the number of warnings, total cumulative warnings by country and by reason. So we specify no as the timestamp, and that will trigger flat data, which means that it's just a running total, and it will delete existing data from the database and replace it with the new value. I'm not 100% sure why we do it like this, where we have the where we say both. I think it might boil down to what I said just a few minutes ago where I could see a site admin wanting to filter by country or reason. So like maybe you would want to get the breakdown of the number of warnings of a particular reason issued by country, or maybe you want to break down the different warnings by country that have been issued. I guess that makes sense. I am running very tired right now, so that was the last of our hooks for the sources section. So we're going to go ahead and commit our changes here. And we'll call it the day there. So again, if you want to check out the Composr CMS, you could go to composr.app for version 11. So Composr CMS is a free and open source website development software that allows you to build your own websites and host them on your own servers. We call it an alternative to big tech. So if you're frustrated by these online website builders that give you little to no control over your functionality or your data, if you're frustrated by, being overcharged by other by software, Composr CMS might be an option for you. So it is free and open source. You have full control over the code and your data. You can do pretty much whatever you want with it. So, as I mentioned, Composr.app is to test version 11 beta. If you want to try a stable version, then you will go to compo.sr, and that is version 10. But as I mentioned before, this site is in read-only mode because of the UK Online Safety Act. That site is based in the UK. So if you want to communicate in the forums or on the issue tracker, you'll need to use the version 11 website composr.app, since not only is this one compliant with the Online Safety Act, but it is also not even based in the UK. It is based in the US. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website at orqata.live. You could see my stream schedule. For now, for the rest of April, Sundays, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, will be Composr CMS development. Then on Fridays, from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I will be working on my visual pinball game that I have been working on for a long time, called Saving Walden. This is kind of like a medieval table with some unique features and stuff that you can play. And the game is free. You can download it as it is and give it a try and tell me what you think. Let's go to the website, and on the schedule page there's a link to the itch.io. Other streams like the TGIF show, Orqata Plays, and Orqata Reacts are on hold until at least May as I settle down in my new work routine. Be sure to join my Discord as well, so orqata.live/discord, and you will be notified whenever I have to make changes to my stream schedule. You could also get pinged when I stream certain things. You will also get the rewards and drops in there for when I give out the rewards for the colonies and defeating the stream boss and other things like that. So check that out. If you enjoyed what you see, consider giving me a follow on Twitch, YouTube, or X, or any other platform that I'm on. And if you really like what you saw and want to support the work that I do and want to help me be able to stream more often and more consistently, consider giving me a donation on Stripe. There is a button there that you can click on my website which will take you to my Stripe page to donate. And you could also support me by subscribing on my Discord server. There are 3 tiers of subscriptions, and you get perks for each one. With that being said, thank you everybody for tuning into today's stream, and we will see you again next time. Have a good week.